Good
Hey,
morning, Michael.
good morning, Chris. How we doing today?
We're doing great. It's Friday, December 3rd, 2021, and this is our Friday morning uh, discussion. We pick different topics every week. Last week, we were discussing, as an introduction to the subject of matrimonials, divorces. We talked a little bit about that general subject in New York. We did mention the fact that there is a process that is not court driven, but is driven by the desires of the parties, which is known as mediation. Mediation is becoming increasingly popular in New York as a means to resolve divorces. You yourself are a mediator, Michael. You're familiar with that topic. This week, what do you want to talk about? Contested versus uncontested?
Yeah, I think it would be to be helpful because we hear all these terms about the various kind of divorces and you see ads and things like that. And so I guess some of the questions that we've been asked over the last week is, what is the difference between contested and uncontested divorce?
Right. The people often call us up and they say, I want you to represent me in an uncontested divorce. I find in many years of doing this that the people who make that call and say those requests, uh, they don't have a real concept of what an uncontested divorce really is. Uncontested divorce literally means that at some point, the parties, the husband and the wife, or the spouses, uh, have made a decision to address the issues amongst themselves. Typically, it can be a marriage of short duration, or very often it's a marriage where the kids are grown and gone. The parties have been, or very often, living separate and apart for some period of time, but that they communicate civilly and they think they've worked out the details. But when you throw in things like children, very often the parties don't realize the complexities of what it's going to require from both parties if they truly have an uncontested divorce, especially if there's children involved. First
So
of
is,
all, you need both parties to agree to the uncontested nature of the divorce. And if you have one spouse who doesn't, then you're going to have a contested situation. Contested divorce generally means that it's a divorce that involves the courts, and that periodically the parties may end up in family court before they file for divorce, or if they've already filed for divorce, they'll end up in Supreme Court litigating issues like who's going to have physical custody of the children, who's going to be paying who child support, potentially the payment of maintenance. Some who are old enough remember from the old days, it used to be called long ago alimony. Now it's called maintenance. Maintenance is something that there are formulas under New York law for how much maintenance is going to be paid by the one spouse to the other. Uh, Theoretically, it's to get the other spouse who has not worked outside the home, or if they did work outside the home, it's in some new capacity to that spouse. But it's designed maintenance to get the new working spouse back on the road to some type of self-sustaining profession, if you will, down the road. So I find that, and I think you would agree, Michael, that uncontested divorces, um, people often think they want to have and have the basis to have. They think that the basis is that they've mentioned it in passing to the other spouse, and that the other spouse has said, sure, I want an uncontested divorce. But that what's really driving it is that they they've heard what the cost of divorce sometimes can be, and they're trying to avoid those costs at any way they can. And in doing so, if they wish it, if you will, if they wish hard enough to have an uncontested, that maybe it can happen. It really can't. But mediation, which is your bread and butter, is this fairly new concept that is gaining a lot of traction in matrimonial fields. Mediators are lawyers. They will tell the parties right off the bat that they don't represent either party. They're there as a mediator to mediate a dispute. It doesn't mean, and I've often told people who are involved in mediation of an uncontested nature, that very often people will say to us, I'm in mediation, but I really think I'd like to have an attorney look at these papers that are being prepared in the mediation. So that tends to cost the parties money, but it's not as much money as a knockdown, drag out, page 6 of the tabloid newspapers type divorce that goes on all day long in every courthouse in New York.
Right.
Especially,
So
I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, is there one uncontested versus contested? Is one of them quicker?
Well, I think, and we always say it, that if you call us up and speak to us on the phone, we'll tell you what we think and what we think in your situation, especially because we have a mediator in the office, and that's you, Michael, that we can provide that service. All we're looking to do is to do what our clients would like to do within the parameters or within the four corners of what the law allows in New York. And we will assist them in getting there. You can call our offices anytime, speak to yourself, Michael, or myself, and we can provide you with information that we think has helped a large number of clients in the past.
Agreed. Now, if a client gives us a call and says that they're in the uncontested divorce situation, do they need an attorney in that situation? Because as you mentioned, they're agreed upon, everything is good, right?
Well, but does it really cover everything? Have the parties, let's assume that the parties have children involved, but they think that because they're civil and they think that because they're going to go separate ways and they're both, to some degree, breathing sighs of relief over that will make the divorce uncontested. It doesn't, because once the parties realize the astronomical cost of raising children, and what the party who's going to have the children most of the time may be entitled to monetarily from the other spouse, very often that's where the concept of an uncontested divorce falls down, and the parties start to realize, especially the party who's going to have to pay, that he or she does not have Trumpian wealth, that he or she is going to have to pay what can be astronomical sums of money to the spouse that's going to have the children for most of the time. Even if the parties say, well, we're going to do 50-50 with respect to the children, it very often doesn't work out that way. So it doesn't cost people anything to call us and discuss it with us. And they're welcome to call the number at the bottom of the screen anytime, 7 days a week.
Wonderful. So that actually leads us into our next week's conversation, which is going to be about child support and child custody and all of those related issues. So until next time, Chris, it's always a pleasure.
Thank you, Michael.
Take care.